Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Let's Play Dai Gyakuten Saiban. As you can see, we have met with our defendant, known as Cosne Mangodal. And boy, this guy is rich! How does he not have a defense attorney is beyond me at this point. That's amazing. Or maybe I should say, incredibly amazing. Oh, and still, they have the nerve to call me, Mangodal, a murderer of all things. How far the London police have fallen. Wouldn't you agree? He's breathing so hard. His shoulders were heaving. Naruhodō-sama, for the time being, shall we introduce ourselves while the defendant is busy panting? Okay. Yes, you're right. Mangodal, please. To tell the truth, Mangodal-san, we came to London to study British law as legal exchange students. So, if you haven't got a defense attorney, if you'd like, perhaps we could lend our— Would you listen? That's what I've been saying all along. Would you stand there casually beside me at court? I'll pay you 1,000 guineas. That's what I said. If that's the case, I can't help feeling oddly unsettled. Very well, I understand. Huh? Oh, likely thinking this right now. This suspicious limey said he's rolling in cash. If that's true, then the fact he hasn't hired the most skilled team of lawyers England has to offer is just strange. Exactly. In other words, there can be no doubt that the suspicious limey is the killer. Am I right? Well, that's right. It's not like that. She gave me both options to go with. I'm gonna go with that's exactly right because that's actually has some funny dialogue. Yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Oh? I mean, Freddy have so much money and yet no one is willing to defend you. It's obvious you did it. Way to start your defense attorney career. You sure know how to give a man a tongue lashing, don't you? Guest from the Orient. Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I'm still not used to speaking English, so it's hard for me to distinguish between what I should or shouldn't say. And yet, what a flood of insults you produced. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, if it's not unreasonable for you to think that way. But to be honest, I really can't help but wondering, why don't you have a lawyer? It's because of the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper? Lord Baruch von Zeeks. He'll be the prosecutor in today's trial. Prosecutor? Is the Grim Reaper? When he's standing at the prosecutor's bench, the defendant starts being referred to as a sacrifice. And so far, in the Grim Reaper's trials, the number of times the defendant's life has been spared is 0. What? And at some point, all defense attorneys began to refuse to stand before the Grim Reaper. I suppose you could say he's already part of the legend of Old Bailey. Lord Baruch von Zeeks. You mean to say he's an excellent prosecutor? No, perhaps it's more accurate to say that he's cursed. Cursed? What does he mean by that? Defendant and defense! It's time for the trial to commence. Come and stand before the grand bench. Defense? Does he mean me? Oh, at last, the time has come. Now then, I'm counting on you. But I still don't know anything about the incident. And on top of that, I still haven't heard your side of the story yet either. till the two of you arrived here, was determined. Eh? If I have no attorney, my only choice will be to defend myself. Defend himself? That's when you appeared, and as a student of law, no less. This cannot be mere coincidence. I believe this is what one would call fate. Is there any chance that you would consider not abandoning me?
I don't know, man. You're really fishy.
Still know nothing about the incident, or even this defendant. But there is one thing I do know. I can't simply turn my back on this man and walk away. Naruhodō-sama. Being made to stand alone in court, defenseless and waiting to be judged. I'm sure that if Asogi were here, he wouldn't allow it.
Defense, what are you doing? If you don't appear in court before the trial is set to begin, you'll lose your right to enter at all.
Understood. I'm on my way. This is where it all begins. My first trial in Great Britain. Please watch over me, Asogi. Is there even anything I can do in my current state?
Yes, because Victorian Europe courtrooms had flaming scales. Anyway, it's the same day, 10 o'clock in the morning in Old Bailey. Full court.
So this is Great Britain's Supreme Court, Old Bailey. Unlike the one in Japan, you can feel the oppressive weight of its history.
Whoopsie. See what I mean when I said about the volume thing? Anyway, where was I?
This heavy and yet serene atmosphere, there are no words to properly describe it. The atmosphere in which people's fates are decided is the same in any country. By the way, may I say just one thing, Naruhodō-sama?
Yes, what is it?
Your eyes. They're darting around again today with great vigor. That's one thing I simply cannot control.
Oh, he's so nervous! Vampire!
Now then, in the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I declare court to be in session. We will now begin the hearing of the defendant, Kazumi Mangotal.
Okay, before we do that, I skipped over something in here. I'm gonna examine the armband. Damn it! Come on, let me examine it.
These are the heavenly scales. It must be the symbol of defense attorneys. Yes, precisely. It symbolizes the heavenly scales that weigh the law and judge every human's deed impartially, and cautions against standing in court with a biased mind. But if they're going to go to the trouble of making a defense attorney symbol, I feel like it would be more auspicious if they had the heavenly scales tipped clearly in the not guilty direction. That's a rather novel opinion.
This is Asogi's. The name tag.
The attorney's name is sewn in here. The owner of this armband, Asogi Kazuma. Kazuma-sama was quite fixated on coming to study in Great Britain. I'm sure he would have found the truth he sought here in England. Yet he lost his life before he even got to see England. This armband must be imbued with all those desires.
Oh, now I'm getting upset again. Okay, anyway, there we go.
And now I ask the prosecution and defense. Are you prepared to make your cases?
The prosecution is ready. So that's the Grim Reaper of Old Bailey. He really does have a dark chill about him that seems like it could suck away a life.
Oriental defense attorney, are you able to understand my English?
Sorry, I didn't mean to... So, to the question of am I prepared? In no position to answer yes, I am. I like the look in your eyes, Japanese boy. Panic, fear, unease. You're desperately suppressing all those emotions. They're the reckless eyes of one standing to fight, clutching onto the imaginary concept of bravery. I wouldn't accept you any other way, as my sacrifice, that is. My fingertips feel like they just froze.
Defendant Cosney Bangadal. Yes? You stand accused of murder. Depending on the verdict issue here, you may be sentenced to death. Are you certain you wish to leave such an important trial in the hands of a Japanese man? It is my firm belief that we must give our youth a chance, even if that youth happens to be an exchange student who just arrived from a tiny nation in the Orient. Bravery, to entrust one's fate to the weak, without concern for one's own safety. That is the chivalrous spirit that Great Britain so prides itself on. Oh, now that's Mr. Mangeldal for you. What a broad-minded man this Star of London is. I hear recently donated £5,000 to the government. Mama, let's go play in Mangeldal Park. It seems that all the spectators are on Mangeldal-sama's side. I'm incredibly grateful for that, but it sounds like he doesn't give such a bad tongue lashing himself. Even though he wasn't able to find anyone willing to defend him. Very well, defend it. That's an admirable position to take. And so, are you also prepared? 6 jury members selected by the citizens of the Imperial City.
Quite! I'm plenty ready to send the villain to the gallows.
I am prepared to dispose of any rubbish. My master commands it.
Ha! The moment you encountered me was the moment your luck ran out.
Oh, you seem too busy.
Chilling.
Certainly, certainly. I'll just be working on knitting some gloves for my grandson.
Naruhodō-sama, those people are... jurors. That's a system that doesn't exist in Japan, isn't it? Yes, precisely. In the British court, the verdict is determined by the judge as well as the 6 jurors. The magistrate, who judges with the wisdom with the law, and the jurors, who represent good sense and popular will. The defendant will be tried according to those 2 points of view. But how do the jurors register their decision? Well, I'm certain that we'll figure that out as the trial proceeds. Right.
Lord Baroque von Zeeks.
Sir,
How many years has it been since you threw away your renown as a prosecutor and withdrew from the court?
I have my doubts about whether the moniker Grim Reaper can truly be considered renowned, but I believe it has been about 5 years.
And now you have returned to the prosecutor's bench once again. Have you come to some resolution in your heart?
I shall leave that up to your imagination, Your Honor. Grim Reaper, back in court after 5 years. Why did he have to pick now of all times to make his comeback? Good question. Naruhodō-sama, you mustn't allow yourself to be discouraged.
The court is pleased to welcome you back. Now then, your opening statement, if you please. Tell us about the incident.
Certainly. This incident happened exactly as you have heard, and nothing more. We're probably the only ones who've heard absolutely nothing. The incident occurred 3 nights ago, around 10 p.m. The victim was Thrice-Baked Mortar, a mason. Thrice-baked?
He was a very skilled craftsman, and apparently no brick he baked ever broke.
The victim's body was discovered on the omnibus while it was making its usual rounds. The body had been stabbed with a large knife, and it's thought that the resulting wound was the cause of his death. This is the autopsy produced by the Yard's coroner.
Very well, we accept it into evidence.
Autopsy, a report of the investigation of the body conducted by the Yard's coroner. Victim died after being stabbed in the stomach. There is 1 wound. The cause of death was internal bleeding. And then a crime scene photo. Photo taken on the omnibus. The crime scene. A knife protrudes from the victim's stomach. His crooked hat obscures his face. There is one more thing. I would like to present these as evidence.
These are... blood! These have blood on them!
Precisely. The officer who hurried to the scene of the crime. When he detained the defendant, these are the gloves the defendant was wearing. What? Mangadal-san's gloves have blood on them?
In any case, the court accepts this vital piece of evidence.
Defendant's leather gloves worn by the defendant when the crime occurred. There are traces of blood on the right hand. Not this again. This feeling of utter hopelessness right out of the gate. Now, according to the testimony given by the driver of the omnibus, there were only 2 passengers when the murder took place. Only 2? Naturally, one of them was the deceased mason, Mr. Mortar. And the other was the defendant, Cosney Mangodal.
That sounds awfully condemning. Your response, defendant?
But naturally, I haven't the foggiest. Mangodal-san.
It's true that I was on the omnibus that night. Every time I set foot in a carriage, it puts me out like a light. Mean to say you were asleep? There's something pleasant about the swaying of a carriage, you see. And then when I awoke, there was a body of a man I'd never seen before in front of me. You see someone collapsed in front of you. The only humane thing to do is to try to help them up, wouldn't you say? I reached out to him, paying little mind to the blood soaking into my leather gloves.
So according to him, that's when the blood traces got on there. One second. Okay. We're gonna look at the autopsy. Oh my god. You know what's really frustrating about the sound thing? I'm not even moving the 3DS, it's on a flat surface and I'm using my stylus the entire time going through this. Anyway. So, the victim, Thrice-Baked Mortar, age 54, male, and a mason. Time and cause of death, February 15th between 10 to 11 p.m. Blood knife wound to the stomach. Death was caused by a loss of blood. Oh, look at that. I'm very sorry. Again, I'm not even doing anything. Alright. This is, like, not fun. Clearly, I'm not allowed to use the cursor or anything. I just have to use the stylus the whole time. This must be blood. What a thing to see the first thing upon arriving in London. I don't see much point in complaining at this point. By the way, is Mangodal-san right-handed? Yes, he was using his right hand earlier to play with that coin. Why couldn't he have been left-handed? Either way, it seems that the same was true at the time that when he got the blood on him. Anyway. Unfortunately, this is not the only fact that implicates this man. What? There's more? When the Mason victim was stabbed with the murder weapon, the knife, there were several people who witnessed that very moment. Great witnesses! Order, order, order! When the murder occurred, only the defendant and the victim were in the carriage, and there exist witnesses to his crime. Rather than labeling this decisive, perhaps the more appropriate word here is lethal. I believe we have a clear understanding of the situation. I think it would be wise to hear the testimony of those who witnessed the murder. As you wish. Now then, witnesses, come forth. So dramatic, Baroque. Right off the bat, 3 witnesses. Very well, witnesses, your names and occupations.
Everyone calls me Beppo. I'm a driver of the East End Omnibus.
Oscar Fairplay. I'm a banker in the city. I'm Adam Lady First. I make hats for gentlemen. Let us start by confirming. 3 days ago at 10 p.m., you all witnessed the murder that occurred on the in-service omnibus. Is that correct?
Right.
Aye, indeed.
Of course.
I'm sorry, Adam Lady First, though. Lady First! Like, they didn't even try.
In that case, let us hear your testimonies right away about the truth of the murder you witness.
Oops. That line. What we witnessed.
Oh, it was the last bus of the the last bus of the evening, so there weren't many passengers. I remember it well.
The defendant and the victim sat side by side on the seat of the carriage. That's when the defendant suddenly plunged a knife into the victim's stomach.
Oh, it's true. He stabbed him with the knife. I let out a scream before I could stop myself. The scream startled me, so I stopped the carriage, and I also saw it.
That seemed very uncertain there, good sir.
What an incredibly clear testimony.
Sure it is. Precisely. The witnesses clearly saw the event that occurred in the carriage. Excuse me, may I say something?
What is it?
In regards to that testimony just now, if I were to be completely honest, I have no idea what it meant. By which you mean the murder took place in a moving carriage, correct? I'm fairly certain that I've been saying that since the trial commenced. So then, how on earth did the 2 witnesses see the crime occur? They shouldn't have been able to see into a moving carriage. Uh-oh. Oh no. Oh no. Oh dear. I had heard that the culture of that Oriental island of yours was a century behind ours, but do you really mean to tell me that you're not even familiar with the omnibus in spite of being here in London? Eh? By the way, Japanese boy, have you ever ridden the omnibus? No? You see, I just arrived in London this morning, so... Very well. It would be best for you to see it for yourself. The actual crime scene where this murder took place. What do you mean? The actual crime scene? Carriages are objects that are capable of movement. You must surely know that much. Yeah, right. Currently, the omnibus on which the murder occurred has been carried here, into Old Bailey.
Eh?
The carriage? Into the court? Bailiff. I bet Baroque is quietly amused by the whole thing. Bearing the omnibus where... Bring the omnibus where the murder occurred. Come forth. We brought an omnibus into the courtroom. So this is the omnibus. I never dreamed they would actually carry the whole carriage in here. I guess I should have expected as much from the British court. Indeed, this 2-story carriage is capable of transporting at most 8 people at once. 4 passengers inside the carriage, and the same on the upper level. 4 passengers. If one wishes to gaze upon London's scenery, it can only be from the upper deck of the omnibus. Any London-born child can tell you as much. By the way, there's a skylight set into the ceiling of the carriage, which allows one to look down into the carriage below. Through the skylight. Ah! It seems that you understand at last. These 2 witnesses were at the time of the murder sitting in the upper deck seat of the omnibus. And they were able to witness the murder that took place inside the carriage. Via the omnibus skylight, you see. So that's it.
In any case, I've never heard of a crime scene in its entirety being presented in court.
There are still clear traces of the murder inside the carriage. Therefore, the carriage should be presented in its entirety, as evidence. That is the prosecution's opinion.
Very well. The court accepts the crime scene into evidence.
The omnibus, 8-passenger omnibus, and scene of the crime. Aside from the seating in the carriage, there is additional passenger seating on the upper deck. To think that the scene of the murder could be presented as evidence.
The British court is just as amazing as I've heard.
Since we have the chance, we should probably give it a thorough investigation. The carriage, I mean. Well, let's do that. We're not gonna finish it though, unfortunately, because we're almost out of time. Not using that. Gonna use the cursor because apparently if I touch anything on the left side is a bad thing.
Now then, open the door and let us go inside.
Ooh, this is the crime scene, huh? Gives me the creeps. In we go! Alright. This is a poster for the World's Fair London, which will be held in 6 months. There's a sketch of the symbol of the World Fair, the Crystal Tower, drawn in it.
The Crystal Tower? It seems that it's being built right now. As if the whole city is alive with the excitement of this international festival.
These seats look soft, but they're surprisingly hard. The 2 gentlemen were sitting here side by side. This bench probably would have been filled to capacity.
English ladies have such beautiful dresses. But I'm sure those would prevent them from riding on the upper deck. They would probably sit in here.
The same is true for Japanese kimono. Women sure seem to have it rough. Well, seat on this side has a handle on it. Hey! Second. Stuffed with tools for making repairs to the carriage.
A trough? Tools for repairing the wheels, a blanket, tools for attaching horseshoes. This appears to be a compartment for storing the driver's tools.
Doesn't look like there's any room for the passenger's luggage.
Well, it doesn't appear to be very accessible.
There's a bloodstain left here. It must be the victim's. And it seems that this position really would have been visible from the skylight. Who would go to the trouble of stabbing someone in a place like this? It was late at night when the murder occurred. The inside of the carriage would have been brighter, so they likely wouldn't have seen out through the skylight. Either way, it doesn't seem like a premeditated murder. Well, maybe I can finish this. At least finish this before we close it off. Quite a large skylight, isn't it? It's certainly large enough to have witnessed a crime through. I don't see anything resembling a handle, so I guess it must not be possible to open the skylight from inside the carriage. Now then, let us disembark from the carriage. These are the upper deck seats. It certainly seems that you could fully enjoy London scenery from here. So then they make you sit up here and travel all around the city at night in the dead of winter? Then they make you pay for it. Ah, you're right. It seems like it would freeze the body and heart alike. For some reason, a certain phrase, public display of a criminal on their way to execution, just came clearly to mind. That's because it is a punishment. Get up there again. Examine the skylight again. The skylight. You really can see the inside of the carriage from here, can't you? There appear to be lamps inside the carriage, so it's entirely possible that they really did witness the murder clearly. Well, that's not good. Alright. Done for now. Gonna let the judge talk. Now then, defense, your cross-examination, if you would. I doubt we can expect a Japanese boy to be able to conduct a proper English-style cross-examination. My first cross-examination in a British court. Better keep your wits about you, Naruhodō Ryūnosuke. We'll examine that testimony in the next video, so see you guys then!